Today, the snow is back. These were some of the scenes this morning as once again much of the southeast turned into a winter wonderland.
But if you think this was bad, you should have been here in 1963.
It was the worst winter of the 20th century and the coldest for more than 200 years. And it seemed to go on forever.
1962-63 was the daddy of them all.
Oh, it was appalling. It was just snow on top of snow on top of snow.
In fact, the first snow fell at Christmas 1962. Then more came the following January.
And then, right at the end of that month, it snowed for 17 hours and Kent was paralysed.
It will go down in history and folk memory as that terrible winter of 1963.
It was a remarkable, remarkable winter.
And because the temperatures were so low, we were under a white blanket until March. That's more than 2 months of snow.
For villages and farms all over southern England, the telephone was the only remaining link with the rest of the world.
And if the snow wasn't bad enough, it was occasionally made worse by the wind. Tricia Leonard was living in Brighton at the age of 7.
So these are the snow pictures from 1963, and a lot of them show that there's not a lot of snow on the roofs because it was really blowing a hoolie. Very, very windy snowstorm. We lived opposite East Brighton Park. It was Wilson Avenue we were in. And it was so bad that there was even snow in the loft. And I think it's the dog basket up in the loft that you can see in the photograph. The wind must have got in under the eaves and blown the snow in. There's no holes in the roof, but that's how it must have got in, and it was quite spectacular.
I remember seeing children walking on the top of hedges to the school bus. And when the school bus didn't turn up, they walked to school because schools didn't close.
Transport was badly hit and food supplies to more rural areas were becoming difficult. Someone had to dig the southeast out of the snow, and one of those was David Bennett from Swanscombe. Grateful people would give him and his colleagues food as they worked. One day, a farmer gave them 2 big raw steaks.
We wondered how we were going to cook them, but what we did, we made a fire. We cleaned our shovels right off, clean, put the steak on the shovel and cooked the steak on the shovel with a can of baked beans on the top, and that's how we had hot food all day long.
How did it taste?
The best steak I've ever tasted.
But one of the most remarkable sights of the winter of '63 was right here in Herne Bay, or more specifically, out there.
Ice, ice and still more ice. There's not a break between Hampton and the main pier.
It was so cold for such a long period of time that the sea froze along the North Kent coast.
By the end of January, the frozen water stretched 2.5 miles out to sea, and Margate Pier and Herne Bay were actually surrounded by pancake ice.
Apart from the bitter winds, snow and frosts, these sustained freezing conditions overcame even the sea, which froze for a distance of at least 2 miles out, taking on the appearance of an outblazed white carpet of ice.
Roger Turner was a journalist for the Herne Bay Press. Like everyone else, he couldn't believe what he saw.
I'd been working on the local paper, and of course if there are any sea stories or any freeze-up stories, I was kind of on hand to go and cover them.
So it was a big story for you?
Well, it was. And there were hordes of people on the seafront who come down to take photos and some movie films of the sea, because it was such an unusual event.
For the first time in living memory, the Medway froze right across from Chatham to Rochester, with ice 2 feet thick. The Navy had to use an icebreaker to keep Chatham Dockyard free.
But what Roger really remembers was not so much the sight, but the sound of the ice.
It was the rumbling noise that was, well, quite eerie that the ice floes were making. And the whole pier was vibrating. You know, if you held your hand on the railing, you could actually feel it shaking with the force of the ice.
Meanwhile, down in Mayfield in East Sussex, a young farmer, Derek Feiges, set off on a 25-mile journey to see his fiancée, Helen Hellier. She lived in Dormansland near East Grinstead. Helen was 19, but her mother wouldn't let her get married until she was 21.
I got a lift in an M-road for as far as Nutley, and then that was as far as I could get because the roads were so bad. So I just walked the rest of the way. I don't know how long it took me.
Hours and hours.
I just didn't.
We didn't expect
when
you to
when you're
arrive.
young and stupid, you just do these things.
So Derek made a heroic journey, trudging through the snow for the remaining 15 miles.
So
You just appeared like
just-
an over-wet snowman. Suddenly my mother said, "Oh, if Derek loves you that much, you can get married. I'll relent." So, apart from remembering 50 years ago that it was all that horrific snow, it also means it's 50 years since we've been married, so it's our golden wedding anniversary.
Oh dear, is it? Oh dear.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
Back over near Sevenoaks, the high-standing village of Ide Hill was cut off. Leslie Chown was part of the team attempting to open the road. He waited in his tipper truck while a JCB digger went on ahead.
And he vanished off into this complete whiteout. And we sat and we waited and we waited and we waited. And eventually we saw this little white snowball coming trudging through the snow towards us, because what he hadn't realised was the wind was so strong. As fast as he was digging forward, the snow was blowing in behind him. Eventually he gave it up as a bad job and switched it all off and trudged his way back to the lorry. And as far as I know, that digger stayed up on the top of Braisted Common for at least 2 weeks.
And imagine what it was like for Jean Stone 50 years ago. She lived in the village of Southfleet near Gravesend, and it wasn't the best time to go into labour with her daughter Deborah. They called the midwife Nurse Amos, who made an epic journey to reach them.
There was no cars, nobody could get by road, and she walked 3 miles across from Newmarn to Southfleet to me in the middle of the night. So it was quite a trudge.
At midnight in the heavy drifts is quite a challenge, I would have thought.
And then to deliver a baby when she got there.
When she got there, yeah, that's right.
Very good, very dedicated.
Must be dedicated.
Yeah.
It was obviously a difficult time for the South East, but it would appear that in the face of adversity, the community pulled together.
It was unbelievable. The camaraderie there was, you know, no one was down. They were laughing and joking.
The comradeship and everybody helping one another was fantastic.
It was very, very much a camaraderie effect. Like the last war, everybody was looking after everybody else.
There's a real touch of wartime spirit, a tremendous community feeling. People who've been enemies for years are chatting with each other again.
So Tony, did you enjoy your work?
It was fantastic. It was a sense of being wanted.
So, 2 months of snow resulted in chaos, but it also left many people with a tale to tell.
And that's why it'll be a long time before we forget the big freeze of '63.